If you've been waiting for Honda to finally give the Passport a real jump forward, the 2026 model actually looks like the one that breaks the pattern. This thing shows up with a sharper attitude, a tougher stance, and finally, a powertrain setup that makes sense for the US market in 2026. You can tell Honda wanted this SUV to feel less like a smaller Pilot and more like something you'd actually want to take on a weekend trail run without worrying you're gonna scrape off half the bumper. The first thing people are going to point at is the new design. Honda didn't reinvent the Passport, but they cleaned up the proportions and made it look more purposeful. The grille sits wider and more upright. The headlights have that slimmer, more serious look, and the body lines don't feel soft anymore. It's still midsize and still practical, but it finally carries itself like it has something to prove. Even the rear end gets a more squared-off vibe with chunkier taillights and a tailgate that looks like it was designed for real hauling, not just grocery runs. Under the hood is where the biggest shift happens. Honda is giving the 2026 Passport a hybrid system right out of the gate, and honestly, it's overdue. Americans want power without horrible fuel bills, and Honda knows it. The setup gives you more low-end push than the old V6 ever did, so the Passport actually feels alive when you're merging or climbing hills. It's smoother, stronger, and way better for long drives. Plus, the fuel economy bump is exactly what this SUV needed to stay competitive. Off-road capability finally gets some proper attention too. Honda isn't pretending this thing is a hardcore rock crawler, but the new Passport is definitely more trail-friendly than the previous version. The all-wheel drive system reacts faster, ground clearance is up, and the suspension tuning does a better job absorbing rough patches without beating you up in the cabin. It's the kind of improvement that makes weekend adventures more realistic, instead of just something Honda lists on a brochure. Inside, Honda cleaned up almost everything that used to feel outdated. The dashboard looks modern instead of bulky. The screens are actually sized for 2026, and the cabin has that typical Honda no drama, it just works layout. Better materials, better seats, and better tech. Simple upgrades that make daily driving way more enjoyable. And yes, it finally gets the kind of wireless features, driver aids, and connectivity that US buyers expect without paying extra. Packages for every little thing. Pricing will land right in the sweet spot for American families. Honda isn't going to make this a bargain SUV, but they're not going to push it into luxury territory either. Expect it to sit just above today's model, but with far more value built in, especially thanks to the hybrid setup and the improved standard equipment. Compared to previous Passports, the 2026 model feels like a genuine step up instead of a mild refresh. Overall, the new Passport gives off the vibe of an SUV that finally figured out what it wants to be. Stronger styling, a more useful interior, real fuel-saving performance, and enough off-road ability to actually justify buying something shaped like this. If you live in the US and you want something that's reliable, tough enough for weekend adventures, and comfortable enough for long commutes, the 2026 Honda Passport is easily the most complete version we've seen so far.